Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we are doing something a little different, really quite unique actually, a microscopic mission, you could say.
Yeah, usually we're tackling, piles of research, big sprawling topics.
Exactly. But today, our entire focus, all our source material, it boils down to this incredibly brief text. Potent, though. Really potent. We're aiming the full deep dive treatment at just 4 lines of poetry.
That's right. It's a real exercise in, pulling meaning out of very little text, relatively speaking. We're looking at a poem called Undertaker.
Right.
It was written by Sharbell way back in 1997, and crucially, he was only 17 at the time.
17. And there's another layer here, isn't there, about the language itself.
Yes, absolutely critical context for our whole discussion. Sharbell wrote this as a non-native English speaker.
Yeah.
So every word choice, every phrase, we have to sort of view it through that lens. It's a really fascinating linguistic filter.
It really is. Because the structure on the surface, it looks simple, deceptively so. But the themes, packed in their existential dread, finality, this search for peace, they're just huge. So our mission today is really to unpack how that language, the crisis it describes, and that youthful perspective, how they all intersect in just these 2 rhyming couplets.
We're treating it less like, say, a diary entry or a biographical snippet.
Yeah, not about the life story so much.
Exactly. More like a complete, complex philosophical statement that's just waiting for us to interpret it.
Yeah.
It's about finding the surprising weight hidden in that brevity.
The economy of words, extracting that sheer weight of meaning, treating these 4 lines like a whole narrative.
Precisely. So for everyone listening, let's lay out the entire source text we're diving into today. The title, all caps, Undertaker, and the date, 1997.
Okay.
And the 4 lines are, when your soul can't rest within you and your life can bear it no longer, there is one man who can face your truth, the man who can take you under.
Wow. Okay. Just hearing them read out like that,
Yeah,
there's a real gravity to it.
there is.
Right. Let's start unpacking. Where better to begin than the title? That immediate atmosphere it creates. So, Undertaker? I mean, that word just hits you, doesn't it? Instantly. There's finality there, closure, dealing with, the unspoken, the end, mortality.
Absolutely visceral.
But the capitalization, let's zoom in on that. Why all caps for such a short, somber piece? It feels like it's doing something specific.
Oh, definitely. That capitalization is a huge stylistic choice, especially given how short the poem is. It sort of lifts the figure out of the everyday, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's not just an undertaker in a suit.
Right. It becomes the Undertaker. It gives it this formal, almost mythic status, like an archetype, an embodiment of some kind of force, maybe destiny or just inevitable resolution. It's monumentalized right from the word go.
And the job itself. The undertaker is the person who manages the very thing most people desperately avoid thinking about. They handle the grief, the physical reality of death, all the logistics. They touch the truth. Nobody else wants to.
And that duality is really core to reading this, I think. Is Sharbell talking about the literal professional? The person providing that physical closure, managing the loss.
Or is it purely psychological?
Exactly, a psychological construct, where the Undertaker represents, maybe, the necessary acceptance of some profound ending. Could be literal death, sure,
Right.
but maybe the death of an old self, or the collapse of a way of life that's just become unbearable.
Leaning into that archetype idea, this figure embodies a kind of radical acceptance. They're the one who can finally look at the situation, the struggle, the failure, whatever it is, and say, okay, this part is over. Now we do what's necessary for rest.
Right, as if the person suffering can't give themselves that permission. They can't find peace on their own, so they need this external objective agent to step in.
It's striking how that single word title dictates the whole mood before you even read the first line. It sets a really serious, heavy tone.
It does. And remember, this is a 17-year-old writing. That choice signals this isn't just, typical teenage angst or a fleeting sadness.
No, it feels bigger.
It feels like an encounter with a genuine existential crisis. That immediate seriousness prepares you for the intensity that follows. It's like the author saying, listen up, this matters.
Okay, let's anchor this in time, too. 1997. Sharbell is 17. What was the sort of cultural vibe then for someone writing with this kind of dark, almost theatrical tone?
Well, the mid to late 90s,
Yeah.
it was a weird mix, wasn't it? There was that sort of dot-com boom optimism on one hand.
Right, the surface gleam.
But underneath, there was also this deep current of existential weariness. You had the whole pre-Y2K anxiety thing bubbling up,
Why?
the hangover from grunge culture, definitely, and just this general suspicion of anything too slick or artificial. A lot of introspection. A lot of angst, really.
You think about the music, the films.
Totally. Stuff like Fight Club was gestating around then, or the impact of bands like Nirvana, Radiohead,
Mm.
asking these big questions about what's real, about sanity, connection.
Hmm.
For a thoughtful 17-year-old, that atmosphere could definitely feed into a sense of isolating weight.
Like, what's the point? Why does everything feel so heavy?
Exactly. And the pre-digital aspect is important too, I think. 1997, this is before everything was instantly shared online.
Right. No Twitter threads about your dark night of the soul.
Precisely. So an emotional crisis felt more private, more internal. It's the kind of weight that might make you turn inward, maybe to something structured like poetry, just to try and articulate how deep it feels. It feels less like performance, more like a solitary grappling.
That desperation maybe fuels the need for this single controlling figure, the Undertaker. The chaos inside needs some kind of external order.
And maybe the act of writing it down itself, possibly by hand, in a notebook, is that attempt by a teenager to impose structure on this overwhelming feeling. Using serious words like soul, truth, life, bearing it, it contrasts so sharply with what we might expect from youth. It shows a preoccupation with really big adult concepts.
Which brings us back again to that crucial non-native speaker context, because when we get into the lines themselves, we have to keep asking, are some of the formal sounding choices, the slightly unusual phrases, are they deliberate poetic grandeur? Or are they maybe the result of working in a second language?
It's a constant question. Does that constraint, that slight stiffness you sometimes get, actually end up elevating the tone, maybe accidentally creating this antique, poetic feel? We'll see that particularly in the second line, I think.
We have to keep that lens polished. The language, even if simple, might carry the extra weight of translating a really deep feeling from one internal language map to another, less intuitive one.
And that search for precision, maybe over idiomatic flow, can paradoxically make the poetry feel sharper, starker.
Okay, good. We've set the scene. Somber, archetypal tone, the late 90s angst, the NES factor. Let's dive into the crisis itself, laid out in that first couplet. Line 1. It hits hard right away, setting the stage internally when your soul can't rest within you. This immediately lifts it beyond everyday suffering.
Totally. It's not about being tired or physical aches or even just being sad. It specifies the soul, the fundamental essence.
Yeah, the core of the person is restless. It signals a deep internal existential kind of burden.
And that phrase, rest with you, it implies something's fundamentally wrong with the alignment. Like the soul, the inner self, is actively rejecting its container.
Its container being
Yeah.
the body, the life circumstances.
So it could be both. The soul is fighting its current reality. It wants peace, tranquility,
Yeah.
but it's being denied that by its own host, in a sense.
That's a powerful, dark image, a crisis of containment, like you said. The self has become uninhabitable for the soul. Where do you even go from there?
Right. If your own core being is rejecting you from the inside. And using the word soul, especially for a 17-year-old, it just escalates the stakes immediately. This isn't just adolescent blues.
Yeah.
It suggests grappling with really deep stuff. Identity, purpose, maybe even a sense of moral failing they feel they can't reconcile, metaphysical suffering.
And that internal struggle flows directly into the external consequence in line 2. And
Yeah.
your life can bear it no longer.
Mm.
The language here feels, again, quite specific, formal, maybe even a bit elevated. Could that be the non-native background showing? Searching for a precise, perhaps slightly archaic word.
I think that's highly likely. Can bear it no longer. It's striking, isn't it? A native speaker today, in casual conversation, might say, I can't take this anymore, or my life sucks, or something much more direct, maybe cruder.
Yeah, bear it feels almost literary.
It does. And notice how life is the subject. Your life can bear it no longer. It's not, I can't bear it. It gives the existence itself agency, as if the life, the whole experience of living, is collapsing under the weight.
That's a really insightful structural choice. It's not just the person feeling heavy, it's the entire sum total of their existence reaching its breaking point, like a bridge overloaded.
Saturation point. The life has hit its maximum carrying capacity. It demands the load be removed.
So what is the it? The it that life can no longer bear?
Well, logically, tracing it back to line 1, the it has to be the weight, the turbulence, the sheer restlessness of that soul we just talked about.
Ah, okay.
The poem sets up a clear cause and effect. Internal spiritual crisis, line 1, leads directly to an unmanageable external life, line 2. They compound each other, creating this broken system.
Okay, but let me play devil's advocate for a second. Could we be overreading the formality here? Can bear it no longer just be, well, a slightly awkward translation from Sharbell's native language that simply means this is really, really bad. A linguistic stumble rather than intentional grandeur.
That's a fair challenge. And we absolutely have to keep that possibility on the table. We can't know the exact intent for sure. However, even if the formality is an accidental result of the NNES constraint, the effect it produces on us, the readers, is undeniable. That slightly archaic phrasing lends it weight. It sounds more profound.
If it said, I can't cope anymore, it wouldn't have that same almost biblical feel of struggle.
Exactly. The formality, whether intended or not, elevates the poem. It shifts it from sounding like a personal complaint to feeling more like a universal existential declaration. It turns the feeling into a kind of structured, enduring truth statement.
That makes sense. The form itself shapes the meaning we receive. So these first two lines establish the core problem, this deep internal misalignment leading to an external breaking point. The whole system is beyond self-repair.
And the transition there is just perfect, structurally.
Yeah.
The first couplet poses the absolute maximum problem, complete psychological existential overload.
Right, nowhere left to go.
Which logically demands an external solution. It sets up the need for something singular, decisive, to intervene. We've framed the profound necessity. The rest of the poem has to provide the answer. Compromise isn't an option anymore. It requires a specialist.
Enter the Undertaker, the specialist for when the soul itself is in crisis. So, line 3 starts to deliver that solution. There is one man who can face your truth. Let's go back to that singularity. One man. Why is that so crucial? If the problem feels universal, why is the solution so exclusive?
I think that exclusivity hammers home the archetypal power we talked about with the title. If this crisis could be fixed by just anyone, friends, family, a therapist,
Right, if there were many options.
then the poem would just be about ordinary grief or struggle. But the fact that there's only one man suggests the problem itself is unique and ultimate. It's about confronting some raw, unvarnished reality. And only this specific agent has the authority, the capacity to handle that truth.
Okay, so what is your truth in this context? Given the restless soul, the life that can't bear it, this truth must be pretty devastating.
It must be. Is it the truth of utter failure, hidden shame, the stark reality of death? Or maybe just the simple, unbearable truth that rest is impossible in this current life?
It could be all of those rolled into one, couldn't it? The absolute reality that the suffering person just cannot look at.
I think so. It's the final acknowledgement that the system is broken beyond repair. And look at the key action word, face.
Right, not solve or comfort.
No. He doesn't fix it, he doesn't soothe it, he certainly doesn't ignore it. He faces it.
That implies the path to resolution isn't about making things better necessarily, but about a brutal, maybe, uncompromising confrontation with what is.
Yes. The suffering person can't deny the pain anymore. They've exhausted that. So they need this external mirror, this figure who will look squarely at the darkest, most unacknowledged part, the reality of their despair, and just affirm it. Yes.
This is real. The Undertaker takes on the burden of that acknowledgement. If you can't face the truth that your soul is homeless and your life has collapsed, he will do it for you.
Exactly. Allowing for that transition into whatever the final state is.
Right.
He embodies necessary, painful honesty. He's the one professional who, never sugarcoats the ultimate outcome.
Which builds this huge anticipation for the final line. The action that provides the resolution demanded by the first two lines. Line 4. The man who can take you under.
It's definitive yet. Wow, it's so rich with ambiguity at the same time.
It really is.
It's the ultimate concluding punchline in a way.
Yeah.
Let's spend some real time unpacking the possibilities here, because how you read Take You Under radically changes the poem's entire meaning.
Okay, what are the main paths?
I see three primary interpretations we could explore. First, interpretation A, literal death and burial. This fits most directly with the title, right?
Yeah.
Undertaker.
Yeah, the professional doing his job.
He performs his service, leading to final physical rest in the ground. The soul's restlessness is finally resolved by the absolute finality of death. It's the simplest reading, the darkest perhaps, but very cohesive with the job description in the title.
The power there is its absoluteness. The struggle just stops. The conflict ends. The Undertaker provides the only guaranteed way for the soul to cease fighting its vessel.
Okay, then there's interpretation B, submergence, deep reflection, or maybe even unconsciousness. This is more metaphorical.
How so?
Taking you under could mean plunging you beneath the surface, under the water, under the earth, symbolically, away from the struggle of the waking, suffering world. It's a release, but not necessarily biological death.
Ah, like sinking down.
Yes.
Yeah.
A cessation of active, conscious struggle. It's the moment you stop fighting the current, you let go, and you sink into maybe a deep, necessary rest,
Hmm.
or perhaps even a breakdown, a psychological going under.
I find that reading really compelling, especially thinking about a 17-year-old writing it, that desire to just pause reality when it's too hard.
Exactly, a psychological surrender, temporary, maybe, or prolonged.
Hmm.
The soul finds rest not because the problem is fixed, but because it's submerged, taken away from the noise and the pain of the surface.
Okay, what's the third one?
Interpretation C. Taking someone under protection or guidance. Like the idiom, take someone under your wing.
Oh, interesting. The mentor or guide reading.
Right. If we see the Undertaker as a purely psychological or maybe spiritual guide, then taking you under means guiding you through a profound transition, a symbolic death of the old self, perhaps, leading to a rebirth or a totally new path.
So he manages the transition from the unbearable old life to some new, maybe protected state.
Precisely. And the beauty here, I think, is that all three interpretations actually work within the poem's logic. They all satisfy the need created in the first couplet.
Whether it's physical death, psychological surrender, or guided transformation, line 4 delivers the resolution that line 2 demanded. The pain cycle is broken by this external action.
And structurally, we have to talk about the rhyme again. It provides such powerful closure, the crisis line, and your life can bear it no longer. It finds its answer, its final destination, in the man who can take you under.
That AABB rhyme scheme, it feels almost like fate.
Doesn't it? It's simple, but incredibly effective. It doesn't just make it memorable, it gives it this feeling of inevitability. The structure itself seems to say, once you reach the breaking point of line 2, the end state of line 4 is guaranteed.
The sound echoes the logic. The rhythm pulls you forward. From problem to singular final solution.
Yeah.
It's just incredibly concise, powerful work, packing so much emotional weight into so few words.
It really is remarkable how much narrative and emotional heavy lifting gets done with such simple, declarative sentences.
Okay, let's circle back properly now to that element that makes this analysis so unique. Sharbell writing this as a non-native English speaker. We need to really unpack how that context might be shaping the language and structure, beyond just saying, oh, it sounds a bit formal.
Yes, this is absolutely key. When someone's creating art in a language that isn't their first, especially at 17, they often rely more heavily on, let's say, the grammatical structures they've learned formally, dictionary definitions.
Rather than the huge pool of casual idioms and slang a native speaker just absorbs.
Exactly. So where a native speaker in despair might blurt out, I just can't cope, or something similar, a non-native speaker might actively search their mental lexicon for a more robust, perhaps more correct feeling equivalent they learned in class or saw in formal writing.
Like, can bear it no longer.
Yeah.
It's grammatically perfect, just not how most native speakers would phrase it casually.
Yeah, precisely. It's formal, almost literary, but totally correct. It's very possible that sentence structure was learned from reading or formal instruction. It avoids ambiguity. It avoids slang a native speaker might reach for. And that slight stiffness, that formality, whether Sharbell intended it or not, ends up elevating the whole tone.
It gives it a seriousness, maybe, that a more casual phrasing would lack. It makes these big concepts, the soul, life-bearing things, feel heavier, more classical almost, like a truth being stated, not just a feeling being vented.
And think about the economy it forces. Working with maybe a smaller, more consciously accessed vocabulary forces a reliance on fundamental, high-impact words.
Like soul, life, truth, man, rest under.
Exactly. There's no room, or perhaps less inclination, for fancy metaphors or decorative language that might dilute the core message. The result is often this stark, powerful clarity. Less noise.
I think we can even connect that NES factor to the structure itself. That clear, consistent AABB rhyme scheme we talked about, longer, truth under.
That's a really interesting point. That simple, predictable structure offers a lot of control. When you're navigating the complexities of a second language, especially trying to express something deeply emotional.
You might gravitate towards order.
Yes. Highly ordered, predictable forms like simple rhymes, couplets can act as a kind of psychological anchor, a framework. It's like the writer is imposing this rigid structure, the AABB form, onto the chaotic, overwhelming feeling they're trying to capture.
So the chaos of the restless soul gets contained, organized into these two neat couplets that march towards a final, definitive answer. The very form of the poem, its orderliness, maybe reflects the 17-year-old's need to impose some control, some understanding on this huge internal storm.
It becomes this little microcosm of order imposed on chaos. And if we synthesize the themes now, Sharbell built this incredibly effective four-part narrative. It's a philosophical argument in miniature, wrapped in this tight form.
Let's recap that flow.
Okay.
Yeah.
1, spiritual failure, the soul rejecting its home. 2, system collapse, the external life breaking under the strain. 3, singular acknowledgement, only one specific figure can face that dark reality. And 4, definitive end, that figure manages the necessary final resolution, whatever form it takes.
It's a complete, concise argument. The only way out of total existential saturation is through some kind of external authoritative intervention. And despite the darkness, the execution is just incredibly disciplined.
And let's underline again, that structure, that control, might be the unexpected poetic strength that comes from the vulnerability of writing in a non-native tongue. The word choices feel fundamental, universal. It allows the poem to resonate across different experiences of dread, even decades later.
It really is a testament to the power of saying less. Sharbell didn't need pages and pages, complex stanzas, just 4 carefully chosen, rhythmically locked lines to convey the absolute bottom of despair and the singular necessary exit.
Yeah. The Undertaker, in this reading, really transcends being just a figure of death or horror.
Becomes almost a figure of peace, essential authoritative peace.
I think so. The necessary catalyst for rest, psychological, spiritual, or physical. He embodies the end of the struggle, and that's why he holds such immense power in this tiny text.
Wow, this has been surprisingly deep for just 4 lines, but incredibly satisfying. Proof that volume isn't always the measure of depth.
Absolutely. When the language is this concentrated, this focused, the depth can be bottomless. Hashtag out outro.
So we've spent our time today really exploring how just 4 lines can hold the weight of an entire existential argument. We looked at the dual nature of that capitalized Undertaker, the kind of strange poetic power that might come from writing as a non-native speaker, those linguistic constraints.
Right, the unexpected elevation.
And that absolute necessity of resolution when both the inner soul and the outer life just fail simultaneously. We've really affirmed the power of this singular figure, the Undertaker, as an agent of essential, undeniable truth.
Yeah, the real beauty here is seeing how much meaning you can pull out when a text is so intensely focused. Sharbell, at 17, managed to distill that feeling of being utterly overwhelmed into this controlled, rhyming narrative.
That discipline.
That structural discipline may be born from the constraints of working in English. It created something uniquely forceful and memorable.
The limits forced the message to be pure, in a way. And that purity kind of forces us to confront these core themes: life, death, truth, rest.
And that purity leaves us with a final challenge, I think, one that comes directly from the poem's core idea. The Undertaker is defined by his ability, his willingness to face your truth.
Right. The specific reality of your restlessness that you might be avoiding.
Exactly.
So the thought we want to leave you with today is this. What is that single, unvarnished truth about your own current restless state? The one you maybe push down or rationalize away, fail to acknowledge that you would need a figure of absolute finality, your own personal Undertaker, to finally face, to bring into the light.
That's the lingering weight of Sharbell's incredibly powerful short poem. It forces that confrontation. It doesn't matter if you're 17 or, well, much older.
A truly profound thought to end on. Thank you for joining us for this particularly intense deep dive into such a small text. We'll be back soon with more sources, more secrets to unpack.
Until then, keep digging for the truth.